Hello, guys. Welcome back to Call Me Cordelia, the podcast where we talk about everything under the sun regarding and with an E. I'm Ophelia,
And I'm Alexis.
and in this episode, we'll be talking about season 3, episode 5.
Woo!
Um, it is a really good episode. Um,
That woo that I just gave was about an 18th of the scream that I have building inside of my soul that has just been trying to escape since I finished the episode last night. So you guys
yeah,
got the very toned down version.
yeah, guys, you should have seen the Snapchat Alexis sent me last night. It was And of course, we're talking about Shirbert. So
Oh
we
yes.
have certainly not been clowned this episode.
I'm retiring the shoes for
It's,
now.
yes, same. So Shirbert, let's just start with the first moment we have, which is in the back room where he's reading the newspaper with Miss Stacy, which, by the way, is in of itself a really cute moment. I mean, having a
Yes.
good relationship with your teacher is very nice. But then she just walks in all casual and starts a conversation. And that already shows like how comfortable they are with each other that they can just start a conversation and it's not weird. And then she starts talking about the obituary, which we'll talk more about later. And he just stands up and stands so close to her.
Oh, he absolutely did not need to be that close for that conversation. Like I was watching it and I was like, Miss Stacy is still in the room, guys, please.
And then it was just like they had this moment, and it was just like, am I hallucinating? Is this real?
I know, I was like, there's no way this is not happening. They do not love me this much. I
Yeah.
truly think that that's because that Ophelia and I suffered for so long under the thumb of Jeff Davis, who notoriously paid us dust all 6 seasons of Teen Wolf. So
And
having
Charlotte
moments like
about
these are just
60.
like feasting. I know. That man ruined us for life. It really was. It was just so, like you said, it was so comfortable and so natural. It was like the most natural thing in the world that Gilbert was standing that close to her, kind of assuming that that must have happened before, because it kind of took Anne a second to realize how close he was standing to her.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, this seems kind of like a squandered opportunity because Diana rushes in and, mentions Charlie. And I was like, oh, Gilbert. But upon rewatching, someone pointed out to me that he does react. He actually looks pretty pissed off, a little bit annoyed that the moment was over, and he dead ass rolls his eyes like as soon as Diana starts talking about the take notice board.
Bro, I saw it the first time. I screamed because, like you said, he looked annoyed because, he's a little flustered because of the proximity, and he's like, what the fuck did I just do? And then, he's annoyed about the take notice board and Charlie. Like, it's just so good. It's so good.
And this is what we were talking about a lot last episode is you can really tell that Sherbert has progressed
Yeah.
because you don't have these giant, okay, well, we did this episode, but we don't, not every single scene with them is like these giant moments. It's very calm and very, you know, normal within the context of the story, like their interactions, which just proves that they've definitely progressed. And I would say that they honestly seemed a lot more like friends this episode than they have over the course of the season, which is something that you and I kind of complained about. Um, but I'm happy. It seems like they're progressing their friendship forward as well.
Hmm. So I think the biggest moment of this episode was Sherbert, Anne, and Gilbert experiencing the dance practice. I
Oh my god.
not expect it to be as long. And
Yeah, me
also,
neither.
okay, we've talked about this. and you said this in your Snapchat, but I'm gonna say it again. They fell in love
There it
during
is. There it
and
is.
and guys, I'm the cynical one of this duo, and even I agree. Like
Mhm.
they fell in love. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, no, I dead ass think we witnessed the moment that Anne and Gilbert just fell in love with each other. Like, truly, I 100% think that's what it is. And the fact that Ophelia backs me up on that just proves that I'm pretty sure we're right because, like she said, she definitely is the more cynical one. I've been saying for pretty much since season one, actually, that I was like, Gilbert is at least he's falling in love with Anne. Like he is currently falling in love with Anne, and Ophelia was very much like, oh, I don't know, like I think a little more time, a little more development. And we both snapped each other when we finished watching the episode, and we were like, so yeah, like we can pretty much agree that we just witnessed the moment that they fall in love with each other, right? And we were like, yep, okay. We were like, great, moving on. um, honestly, from okay, so apart from that, just kind of overall thought, I had a lot of you guys in my ask box if you listen to the show. But I had a lot of you guys saying that you are pretty positive. You actually, based off of the events of this episode, you could see like a confession happening this season. And I would have disagreed with you an episode ago. However, I could maybe kind of see that happening now. Like, I was just talking to Ophelia about this, but I think I would still need maybe a little bit more discussion about the difference between love versus lust versus just like having a crush on somebody. Whether that's, Gilbert talking to Bash more about this quote unnamed girl, like Bash doesn't know who it is. And maybe moments of the camera really emphasizing that Gilbert is following Bash's advice and it's starting to line up with how he feels about Anne and like these moments that they're having together. Like we'd have to see them as much as I think that they fell in love. I think it's pretty obvious that from the look that they gave each other and separately right after and the way that they both yeeted out of that schoolhouse, I think proves that even though they just like definitely fell in love, I don't think they realize exactly what it is yet. So I think that's something they still have to kind of talk through before there would be like a confession. But honestly, like I wouldn't be shocked at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I honestly feel like season 4 will be the season where they start courting and kind of figure out how to do it in their own style since they're not a very conventional couple.
Mm.
So I definitely see them confessing at the end of season 3. Um, yeah, yeah, like you said, they first have to realize the weight of their feelings for each other and how to handle that. And I found it very interesting, actually, that Gilbert even discussed it with Bash because it really means that he's invested in what he felt and it's important to him. But I am a little bit wary that Bash's advice might put Gilbert on the wrong track because he said like, oh, feelings and in love is different. Like in love is bigger, and to me, it might even be connotating as something more mature. And since Miss Rose is more mature, he might misinterpret it as being like, oh, I should go for Miss Rose because she's older and more mature, and
Yeah.
so that's concerning. But
Also, I just had
yeah.
to say really fast before we move on. I just had to put this out into our podcast. I would like to point out the fact that during this conversation with Bash, Gilbert was chopping carrots. I just think that's very important for everybody to know and for everybody to realize because I didn't realize it until somebody said it on Twitter, and I will never doubt the writers' room comedic genius ever again. They're brilliant. They deserve to have their own comedy show. Okay, anyway, sorry for that tangent.
Dude,
Keep going on with what you
no,
were saying.
I saw it too. I was writing my notes this morning, And I was writing like, oh, and whilst Gilbert was cutting the carrots, and I was like, wait, what the fuck did I just write?
Wait a
Carrots?
second.
I almost yeeted myself out of my window. Anyway,
And he's cooking out of Anne's cookbook like the whole time. Like he's
really?
looking at the book that Anne made for Delphine.
So cute. But back to Sherbert's dancing, it was so fairy tale like. Like they forgot there were other people in the room and they were so happy to be
It was
together
Tangled.
and to have this moment. And it's just, and the way he grabbed her hand and pulled her to the other side. And sure, they danced together. I was
Well, also the
screaming.
fact that the twirl was all Gilbert. Like that was not in the choreography that Miss Lind showed them, and that was not none of the other couples did that. Like Gilbert just did that to make Anne laugh or to have a moment with her.
His
Like,
smile, the
oh
whole
my
scene.
god. Okay, we're really gonna try to pull it together because this is degrading quickly, but I can't. I'm trying. I just it was literally like that scene from Tangled, like when they're dancing. And that's so funny because over the summer you were listening to the
Stop,
scene and you
stop.
were like, this reminds me of Anne and Gilbert. And that was before we even knew that there was going to be a dance or this shit that just happened because it was literally Tangled. They were dancing with other partners and they were looking at each other the entire time. Like Anne would be dancing with Charlie, Gilbert would be over there with Jane, and they weren't looking at their partners for a second. They were just looking at each other. It was honestly, I also got really big. I don't know if you've seen the 2005 Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, but someone sent me in and asked, and I was in total agreement. It gave me big Pride and Prejudice vibes because in the movie, have you seen it? First of all,
Yes, but I low key, high key hated it. So
oh, I freaking love that movie. But for those of you that don't know, there's a scene in the movie where uh Lizzie and Darcy are dancing under a very different context. They still hate each other, but they're dancing and the music slowly swells louder and louder and they do this cut scene where it literally looks like it is just the two of them in the room, but there are other couples. I mean, like they're in the middle of a group dance kind of similar to this, where everybody else like fades out.
mhm.
And that is very much also the case here, I would say, because the way that the camera was focusing, obviously it was just on Anne and Gilbert, but you like couldn't even tell who was around them. Like you didn't even know who they were
Yeah,
dancing with because the camera was like you couldn't see faces, you just saw like hands. You could only see all of Anne, you could only see all of Gilbert, and that was so intentional. Um it was just like the way that the music faded out and swelled and it slowly went into slow motion. Yeah, it was 100% like them falling in love, and that was, I think that was the point that Moira was trying to make. And I just have a note that says, "Oh, you will certainly not be hearing from my lawyers because I threatened to call my lawyers on Moira at least once every episode, and she absolutely will not be hearing from them this week."
same. And then to like keep going before we talk about this for 2 hours. And then the dance is over and they just stand there looking at each other like, what did you experience this feeling, this moment? And they legit stand there for a solid 10 seconds, maybe even more, before they like come back to earth. And
Of course it's Anne that has to, you can literally see, like I went back and watched the scene obviously about 80 times, and you can like obviously see Anne literally kind of like shakes her head and blinks like she's coming out of a trance. I just
yeah,
That was such a good scene. They were having so much fun together and Gilbert was obviously trying to make her laugh. And the fact that Anne was reciprocating these looks, and kind of the flirtation behind it is so big. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I can't believe I got
You
lucky
said
enough to have that on my screen.
you said the word. It was a flirtation. This was a mating dance, dude. This was a mating like bird.
You're not wrong.
Like
Also,
Gilbert was
before,
literally just like puffing his chest, like, look at me, and I am the man for you. Come at me, you know?
well, and he literally knows what he's doing, because those shots where he looks down at their hands and is just smirking, which this is something I would like to hear your thoughts on,
Okay.
because I don't know if I interpreted it maybe the correct way, but I guess I was kind of confused. I mean, obviously they both looked very befuzzled and confused and conflicted when they kind of broke out of the dance, but I don't know why Gilbert looked so confused. Like, I thought that it kind of been like assumed this whole time that he knew he had feelings for Anne. Was he just confused at her reaction, or the strength of his feelings? I don't really know. I guess I didn't really understand that.
I think both. So her reaction, because you probably thought she would be more reciprocating of it after the dance as well, but also the weight of his feelings, because afterwards, obviously, he says to Bash, like, what do I do? Um, so I think, like, we have to remember he's 17 in this season, and you're still confused about your emotions then.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I guess it's just like, okay, I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes you have this moment with someone you like, and then you get out of it and you're like, what the fuck did I just do?
Oh yes.
And you're so
Oh yes.
confused. I think that was this moment. Like in the moment itself, you're confident, you're like, it's going, it's easy. And then afterwards, you have this crippling doubt and insecurity, whatever. So I think this was just a very relatable moment and not
Yeah,
something
and
like, oh, he's because he has known for a while that he likes her. So
and I think obviously I really really hope that that is not the last scene or moment that we have with Gilbert talking his feelings out with Bash. Or even Anne talking her feelings out with Marilla. I think it would be way more likely for Gilbert to be having those conversations. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this continues to play out, like into the fair. You know, we still have that preview with the psychic and the shot of them like straight out of an anime, I think is what you said last episode.
yeah.
Kind of behind the mural. We still have that. So it's going to be interesting to see how their feelings progress from here, and what is ultimately going to cause Gilbert to feel like he's in a position where he has to ask Winifred to the ball. I don't know if it's just going to be like a friends thing, but we'll see. Honestly, after this, there is zero. If there was no worry about Gilbert and Winifred before, after seeing this scene, I have absolutely none. There's not a shred of doubt in my mind that they're probably going to drop the L word at some point this season.
Yeah, because like he legit confessed his feelings for her to Bash. He didn't say her name, but like he did say like, "Oh yeah, I have feelings for this girl." Like he acknowledged it. So their end game, don't
Yeah.
worry about Rose. It's going to be fine.
And we've just had a lot of talk about this season about defining love. You know, Mary
Yeah.
pulling him aside and being like, "Mary for love, only for love." Um, and then we go to this where Gilbert's like, "Hey, Bash, what the fuck am I feeling right now?" And I think it would be a huge missed opportunity if we didn't get to see him talk that out a little more. Because, like Ophelia said, I mean, he's known that he's liked Anne, since season 1. He's known that he has some sort of feelings for her. So it's just very interesting that now he's suddenly confused about what defines these feelings. Also, the fact that Mary said specifically marry for love, and Gilbert goes to Bash and says, if I'm having these feelings for a girl, is that the one I'm supposed to marry? Like,
Oh, I didn't realize.
yeah,
Interesting.
because if he's thinking it's love, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just think he's known he's liked her, so it's just interesting that it's confusing him now, meaning he's experiencing a different sort of emotion. So yeah, I mean,
Why
we've
are
said
we
it
doing
a million times.
podcast with the two of us? Like you could carry this alone. I'm just like gasping
No, you are not.
situation right now. Um,
Ophelia, I
I
depend
think
on you.
to move on before we just go down a spiral. Um, a small moment after was the tableau moment where they, you know, put on their hats and suddenly they're like in front of each other and they're like, oh my God. And then it
Parallels.
goes the parallel,
And it
yeah.
and it was what you said at the beginning. You were like, I really think this scene is going to be them sort of seeing each other for the first time. That's what it feels like to me. And I definitely think that's what it was.
Oh yeah, I did see.
Well, I think that's what it was, 100%. Um, and then, of
Uh,
course, the great moment of them walking out of the schoolhouse, and Charlie comes up behind Anne, and she thinks for a
oh,
second it's Gilbert,
she does. She does.
and she's like super disappointed when it's Charlie. Like,
It
um,
was interesting though how she let him walk her home for like 10 meters because she let him for like a second. That was quite interesting actually. Um, but we don't have to worry about them since she's now actively disgusted by him because of his vile comment. So
yeah. Oh, wow. Like that came out of nowhere. He was like, I'm worried about you, Anne. And I was like, oh, Charlie. And then he said that shit about like an overactive mind makes you barren. And I said, oh, no, Charlie. No. Um, and like with that same vein of sort of, I guess, talking about stuff like that, you actually told me this a really, really long time ago before anything came out. And you said, do you think that it's likely they're going to have more talks about like the birds and the bees now that they're getting older? Do you think that's going to be a topic? And I said, I have no idea. And it absolutely is. But we got another Sherbert moment out of it too, because the girls all just kind of assumed Anne would be the one to talk to Gilbert about it.
yeah, I was really surprised. Like they know, oh yeah, Anne is the closest to him, so she's going to ask him like it's a normal thing. So cute.
But I guess it could be argued that Anne is the bravest of them. So it's just kind of like,
Also,
why doesn't Anne ask them? But I don't want to go with that explanation. So I'm just not
we
going to.
legit, we legit have the same notes. It's kind of creepy, but
I know. We don't write these together, guys. I would like to point that out. Like, we always accidentally double share documents when we're making our notes. So, like, I'll make one and share it with Ophelia and then forget to tell her that I shared it with her. And then she'll make one and share it with me. And I'm like, oh, I got a shared note. But they're always, like, almost exactly the same.
yeah. Let's go. So now that we've covered Sherbert and can move on to different things, let's go back to the beginning of the episode. We'll now go more chronologically. And it starts with the class in the woods with a lesson of Miss Stacy about the literal birds and the bees, not the figurative ones. Um, and it is very interesting because we see the First Nations people aiding Moody because he fell from a rock because it's Moody. And Gilbert is very interested in what is happening. Care to move on with that, Alex?
So we divide up our notes into like characters a lot of times. It's just how it ends up happening. And my whole note for Gilbert is called Dr. Gilbert, and the topic is Dr. Gilbert at it again, stealing my heart. And then just Moody, please feel better. So I really, really like that Gilbert is interested, in like natural medicine and exploring what the natives know, the First Nations people. And I had a note in here that says, well, I guess he still doesn't faint at the sight of needles now, because they were sewing Moody up and he did not pass out. I just think that was really interesting. I would love to see Gilbert potentially going to the First Nations people to get trained, but I think it's more likely he's going to go to that female doctor Miss Stacy mentioned. Yeah, I really liked that. The whole outdoor classroom stuff I really enjoyed. I think that was a sort of nod to like the original source material, because they talk all the time in like the books and the movies about, oh, Miss Stacy like takes them outside as opposed to Mr. Phillips, who didn't want them to do anything. And I really like that, I guess, foil to Mr. Phillips, because he never would have done something like that. But of course, Miss Stacy takes them outside to do some hands-on learning, because she's the best.
I also loved the aftermath of it with Gilbert talking about it with Bash in a very lively manner, very passionate, which was very reminiscent of how Gilbert in season 1 and 2 would talk, because I've gotten an ask about Lucas's acting, saying it seems more dispassionate than it used to be. But we have to remember that he's now more mature, Gilbert as a character, and speech is a little bit more stilted in that time, like the vernacular.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like then is how in moments like these, where he's passionate about something amongst people he trusts, he becomes more open and it's more casual talk like, with his speech. So it's really nice, because we've seen before when he has this emotional moment with Anne in episode 3, and now again here with Bash, and obviously like Gilbert dancing with Anne was very boyish back to season 1. So
yeah,
you guys don't have to worry about Gilbert or Lucas being dispassionate about it. I don't think that's it. It's just part of his character now as he grows up.
yeah, he's definitely just grown up, and also you have
That's
to
my part
remember
of it.
that he kind of went through some heavy stuff, the first few episodes, so he's kind of going through it. So it's not like surprising that he seemed a little more like mellowed out, or maybe a little more toned down than usual. Season 2, kind of the same, I guess. He'd just come off of everything happening with his father, and we saw pretty clearly there was still a lot of like leftover feelings to kind of work out with that. So I think that honestly a lot of the sort of dispassion comes from Lucas more playing into Gilbert dealing with stuff. But
Yeah.
you have these moments with Anne, or good scenes with Bash, where he's having fun, and it's like, quote, like old Gilbert, I guess. The kind of like boyish, like mischievous side of him is definitely still there. We don't have to worry about that.
Hashtag dairy or hashtag Diana.
I think it's dairy. I've seen that tag.
Okay, we'll use dairy, because I have like a question mark with it, because I want to use the ship name, so it's dairy. Cool.
Solid. Yeah, take it away. Honestly, like I think we probably have the same notes on it.
I'm so hyped that it is a secret relationship. I'm
Me
so
too.
hyped.
I'm so excited.
And it's just so cute, like exchanging books and the subtle notes, like the handkerchief and mon chéri, and just it's so cute. It's so cute.
Guys, we have to also mention Jerry came out from behind a tree this episode. I don't know if you guys have been listening. If you have been listening from the beginning, you'll remember our remarks in the trailer that Jerry is about as lanky and tall as a tree now. So we said we wouldn't be surprised if they were walking through the forest and he was just standing there with like his arms out, disguising himself as a tree, and he dead ass came out from behind a tree this episode, and I screeched. I was laughing so hard. Also, I just loved all of their scenes. Like him walking her home, um, like getting off of the Cuthbert farm early to go and walk her home, and her kind of playing hard to get a little bit, and then changing her mind and being like, yeah, I want Jerry to walk me home. But there's this nice little, well, it wasn't nice, it was actually kind of sad, but there's this good little detail in there where while he's walking, or while he's standing there waiting for her to answer, he picks like a piece of hay off of his coat and looks really defeated, like he's kind of remembering, he's a farm boy and Diana's like a rich lady. So I think that kind of is like restating that this is going to be a big deal when people start kind of finding out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's going to be quite dramatic, I think, the end of season 3 when it leaks. I'm betting
Yes.
on Lynn, to be honest. Like, she's gonna find out.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be shocked. I also wouldn't be shocked if Anne is the first to know,
Oh,
because
definitely.
I think we actually headcanon this, but I wouldn't be surprised if, well, we've already seen it. Diana's kind of acting weird. Jerry's kind of acting a little bit weird because they're trying to not tell people, and Diana's trying to play it off. So I think Anne is going to catch on. She already did. She kind of made a comment about like, well, somebody made quite an impression when they stayed for supper. So I wouldn't be surprised if Anne starts realizing that Diana is like really acting weird, and she gets very suspect. So she starts following her and like getting very paranoid, for obviously for good reason, because there is something going on. And then she oversees like something happening. So I would not be shocked if Anne is the first to know, just because she's snooping.
I would also like to mention that Jerry kind of comes from a different culture, let's say. So when Diana's like, "Oh, what you're doing right now, it's improper," and he simply says, "Oh, my mom found you charming, so here I am." It's a very different mindset, and I like how we have him as a different viewpoint of society in that
Yeah.
case. Because I don't know the history of French Canadians and Quebec and whatever, but it might be like that for them, it's normal to just do it if you want to. And I really like that. And it might even inspire Anne with
Oh God.
Gilbert. Who knows? I'm always coming back. I hate myself. Okay.
But what,
Moving
I
on.
mean, we can't help it. Although I will say, with if we're gonna be mentioning Diana and everything, Moira Wally Beckett, if you're listening, please, please deliver me my Gilbert and Diana bro TP. That's all I want. I want it so badly. And
It's true. Like she's asking for it since day one. So
please, that's all I want. I think it would be amazing. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I think this
no,
might, I'm just gonna go ahead and get my clown shoes out, but what if Gilbert's the one that first figures out about Diana and Jerry? Like he's walking home and he sees it or something, or I don't know. I don't know how that would happen, but that would be a very interesting dynamic. I think maybe even more so than Anne being the first to figure it out, because Gilbert would have to like keep it a secret and then bond with Diana over it, and then maybe bond with Jerry over it. And yeah,
yeah.
I would love that. I don't think it'll happen, but that would be amazing.
Speaking of walking home, we both put it in our notes, but what did you think of Gilbert and Anne taking different paths? Because I
Oof.
always have like my reasoning, but maybe you have a different one.
And I was not thrilled about it. I That actually kind of made me not cringe in like a cringe, like a bad way, but like, ew, that's not good. You know what I'm saying? Because it was just very intentionally shot. They're both, I think, honestly, if anything, it's supposed to show they're kind of like going their different ways to figure it out on their own because they both are very confused right now. Uh yeah, I don't know. Honestly, that shot just more like stressed me out than anything. So I would love to hear what you had to say about it.
I just thought it was symbolizing the slow burn, like just straight on. Like, yeah, this is going to take a while, guys. Just yeah, they're going different paths. Just wait.
Which honestly is what we've been saying for forever, really, is that, season 1 was all about developing Anne, a little bit about developing Gilbert, and then season 2 was all about a lot of it was Gilbert development, and a lot of it was still Anne development, and then the very end of season 2, that whole remains to be scene was ending with a shot of the two of them together. I think was more with saying, okay, it's time for them to develop together. So I think that that makes sense, like they still have some growing to do separately, but they're definitely making their way towards each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's the same. Oh God, we're going back to Shirbert, but it's like the same thing with during the dance. When they were holding hands and they made it a point to show a shot of their hands like breaking apart and like still kind of reaching for each other, like they were holding on to
Oh,
each other for as long as possible. And I don't know if I was reading too much into that, but that also felt a little bit ominous, maybe, or a little bit promising. Who knows? Maybe I'm reading way too much into it, but
no, I had the same. I was like, no, don't
yeah, I was
play.
like, eek.
Um,
Which I wonder. Okay, now that they've had this dance, one of the friends that I was watching with actually mentioned this, but now that they've had this dance, I think it's very, very, very likely that if Gilbert ends up taking Winifred to the dance, there's probably going to be a lot of parallels between the way that it is with her, or even the way that it is with Anne and Charlie, if that's who she ends up going with, versus the dance that they had this episode.
oh, she will not go with Charlie, not after that comment.
Oh, she
Like,
better not. Like, queen, please.
no. But those parallels with Gilbert and Winifred and Gilbert and Anne is very plausible, I think. Oh wow, yeah, that would be really interesting. Um, oh wow, okay, yeah, yeah.
Someone
Um,
sent me an ask talking about that, and they said the same thing. They're just kind of like, oh, like this is pretty plausible now that they have these like parallels. But then they also said it would make a lot of sense if Winifred caught on to the fact that Gilbert couldn't stop staring at Anne, or that Gilbert and Anne have this sort of chemistry. And she kind of is like, you know what? It's okay. Like, I understand if you have feelings for her, but you got to figure that out, buddy, because yikes, like, that's a lot of feelings that you have there. Um, and I wonder if Bash is going to be there. Honestly, I think we might have already touched on this, but I don't know why Bash seemed like he didn't know who he was talking about, because Bash was giving him grief about Anne all through season 2. So I feel like he has to know.
I think because there was a big time jump between season 2 and 3, so you like let it go. And maybe, Gilbert got sick of it and now he's just like, I'm gonna let him figure this out on his own, just, not tease
Yeah.
him. I also got an ask about this on my personal Tumblr. And someone asked if there was a possibility that Anne and Gilbert would dance at the actual dance because they've gotten this scene now. And I said that I didn't know, but that it would be actually more interesting to see what doesn't happen to only amplify the feelings they have for each other, like a stare, an almost touch, a longing gaze. Like that is much more interesting sometimes than an actual dance.
Mhm.
Um, so like you said, Winifred noticing the intimacy between them might be more, might be very plausible that that would happen.
Yeah, although I really can see them dancing, I'm really nervous. I just have this feeling that they're going to get re-mad at each other at some point between now and the dance. Like, I don't think it's just gonna be this weird, like, what's going on? I think it'll probably be that also, but I think it's probably gonna be that on top of someone gets annoyed at the other person again, which I'm not excited about. And I don't even really know if I have grounds to feel that way, but I do. So, ugh. I think it might just be me being paranoid. Um,
I wonder what they would be mad about though. Like it should be a new topic then because nothing has been introduced where they could be mad at each other because they're on such even ground right now. Like they're on the same wavelength on everything. So
yeah. And someone asked me, they said, why do you think Gilbert was mad, like, at the end of that dance? And
wow.
I don't think he was mad. I think he was more
Wow.
confused than
Yeah.
anything, and he seemed a little annoyed that Anne broke the moment,
Yeah.
if anything. I don't think he was, like, angry. I think he was just like, "What the hell is happening?" Um, but yeah. But also with, romance, this is just a really quick little moment, but I I am willing and open to ship Moody and Ruby. I would be for
Yes.
that.
I've been
Yeah.
waiting to talk about this.
Well, when he was like, "Should I play my banjo?" He wasn't talking to Ruby, and she immediately was like, "Yes, like please." And the way that she was looking at him is the way that she used to look at Gilbert. Like we haven't seen Ruby even mention dancing with Gilbert. Like I felt like it was going to be plausible that the dance scene was going to have the potential to make like a really big moment for Ruby, like or at least kind of hint again that Ruby has this huge thing for him, but she didn't, she didn't try to stand in his group. She actually didn't want to touch anybody. Uh she didn't want to stand in his group. She didn't make a comment about wanting to dance with Gilbert. She just sat on the side and had a moment with Moody instead, which, I'm all for. I want my sweet girl. My sweet girl deserves happiness too.
Yeah, I think that maybe this season she realized like, oh, I'm not ready for things like that because, she is scared to touch people, and since Gilbert isn't, they might not be as compatible as she once thought. So it's actually quite nice to not have it be dramatic,
Oh
Ruby
yeah.
seeing Gilbert and Anne interacting, whatever. And I actually like that it's kind of comedic, like, oh, and now it's Moody. Like that's how fast she switches, only amplifying the fact that she never really liked Gilbert to begin with. Um, and yeah, I ship it. I think it's cute. I think
Yeah.
they work. Like they're more on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I'm open and ready to ship it 100%. But Ruby not wanting to touch people at the dance is a good segue into kind of a big point of the episode, which is
Yeah.
somebody get these kids a sex ed class because they have no idea what they're talking about, which is it's
And
understandable.
it's so interesting how Miss Stacy is unwilling to talk about it when she is portrayed as this unconventional radical teacher, but she can't say it. It's so like what?
Yeah, I don't know if she was unwilling as much as she was just like unsure. I don't think she was expecting that like in that moment. But I think the fact that she even tried to explain it is pretty progressive for the time, especially considering what these kids know or don't know. Uh so it made me wonder if they weren't going to maybe have a scene or some kind of sex ed class. That might be too progressive unless somehow she like talks to their parents and has a very, very broad, vague version of it. But yeah, I mean, the kids are like, what? Yeah, they're all like 16 now, and they had no idea what they were talking about. Which again made sense with the time, but they get these kids
Yeah,
a sex ed class.
I don't think they will get a sex ed class. Yeah, I think it'll just be them reading up on it or asking more from Gilbert. Um, but it did lead us to this beautiful scene at the end with the girls around a campfire,
Oh, I
um,
loved that.
where they celebrate their womanhood, whatever. Um, and especially like Ruby embracing it, was really beautiful and powerful. And yeah.
Yeah, I really liked that scene, and I had a note. I should have gone back and copied down each one of their quotes, but I think that each one of their lines that they say and kind of like the chant reflects their personality or who they
Yeah.
are. Because Ruby specifically mentions, being emotional. Jane mentions being pretty academic. I don't really remember the other ones, but I just remember thinking, oh, I think the quotes that each character was specifically given reflects who they are and like their inner desires, which was very interesting. Honestly, that whole scene was great. It was beautiful. They've developed so much as friends, and it's clear that they all really care about each other, even though we haven't expressly seen Josie development yet. But at least for the other girls, you can really tell that they do care about each other a lot.
It was just really gorgeous, and I found it was better than the scene in the snow in season 2. I found that very odd. Um,
Yeah.
better. And also, I have a question, Alexis. If I ever go to your location, can we do it like the campfire?
Yes, we're going to do that. Actually, you all are invited.
Okay,
We're
great.
gonna have a giant bonfire, and we're gonna do it. Also, I don't know why you're saying if as if you're not gonna fly over here because it's happening. But yeah, when
Uh,
you come over here, we'll do that.
of course, because I have
The
all the money in the universe, obviously.
Yes, yes. The most tragic tale of our generation is the fact that Ophelia and I live an ocean apart as very broke college students, but hopefully that will be fixed one day.
Yeah, I'm
Speaking of
saving up, by
friendship,
the way. I'm saving up, so
yes, it's happening. It's happening, guys. Don't worry. You'll have an Aulilia real life meeting. I promise. One day. Um, but hey, friendship. That's a really good segue into the next point that I really wanted to make, which was about Bash and Gilbert, man. Just their friendship will never get old. I love it so much. And that scene that they had, this episode where they're sitting at the table and Gilbert gave them the obituary. They had this moment where Bash reaches for Gilbert's hand and then Gilbert reaches back for Bash's hand. And
yeah.
that was so beautiful, and I loved that so much because we talked about this last time, but I feel like male friendship in television or really in real life is not portrayed a lot. It's like not okay to be touchy almost, or they say like it's not okay to like hug or hold hands or whatever. Um, but I think that moment was so beautiful because it showed that they understand what losing Mary meant for the other one. Like they know how much the other one is hurting. It's not just them doing it alone by themselves, grieving in their own way, which they are, but it's also something they're going through together. And I just loved it a lot. I cried for sure.
Yeah, I love that moment too. And speaking of Mary's obituary, um, the Barrys read it, Diana's parents, and I think then helping Bash with like putting the apples in their export will help Bash financially, and it will aid him in a way where he will not need a wife.
Yeah. Oh
um,
God.
I think that is the way they're going with it now. Like, oh, the berries will help him, and so he won't need to find a woman a month after Mary passed, you know?
Yeah, or give Delphine up, which is
Oh
what
my God.
Rachel was implying. What the hell? Like, no. Although they did mention Bash is writing to his mother, so I hope she comes. I would
Oh
love to
yeah.
see that.
Okay.
She was really cool when we saw her in season 2, what little bit we saw of her. So I hope she comes. I think that would definitely be a character I would love to know more about. But I will say it. I do still think they're gonna keep Bash single. I
Yeah.
think inevitably. I wouldn't be shocked if he ended the whole series single. But and I know I'm still pretty positive they're keeping Miss Stacy single. But just the implication that Miss Lind was trying to get involved with it did make me sweat a little bit because I made this pretty clear last time, but I absolutely am not behind a Bash and Miss Stacy relationship. I want them both to be single. I think it's a very important thing to portray, especially with Bash having lost Mary so recently. But I would love for them to sit down and have a talk about what it means to lose a spouse. And honestly, my friend mentioned this when we were watching it, but she said, because we all saw it kind of happening and we're kind of squirming a little bit about it. And my friend was like, yo, what if Rachel tries to set them up though, and they end up talking and just becoming like best friends? Like, there's nothing romantic at all, but they try it out and they're just like bros, like the best of friends. And I would be completely behind that.
That would be dope. Oh my God. Give it to me.
The
Yes.
bro TP
If
of the
that can happen,
century.
someone write a fanfic about it. Thank you. Good night. Okay.
I might, who knows if I'll ever finish it. I might start it, but it won't get finished. So I'll just pass it off to somebody else. Um,
MVP.
Oh, you go first. Who was your MVP of this episode?
Either Gilbert or Tilly, because she accidentally fell over so that the twins could catch her, and I lived.
Oh,
Oh my
she
God.
knows what she's doing.
Yeah, I
Um,
lived so much. But
my,
logically speaking, it's Gilbert. So
but I mean that's like what we did last time. Like logically speaking, Diana was our MVP, but figuratively speaking, Minnie May was my MVP. But this time, my real MVP is also Gilbert. I think he had a really interesting arc. Like we said at the beginning, it was very nice to see him all boyish and mischievous again. I did miss that side of Gilbert a little bit. But like I said, he's just been going through stuff. You know, he's just been dealing with some stuff. He'll be fine. Um,
do you have any more notes?
well, I would like to read off a brief bullet pointed list of things that were said by my friends during this
Sure.
Shirbert scene, and they go as follows. One of them said, well, I didn't know that I had asthma, but now I do. One of them said, I am blind now. One of them said, I honestly don't think I can drive home. I'm sorry, I'm sleeping at your house tonight. And then immediately after that, she said, do you think I could use this episode as an excuse to not go to class tomorrow? And I said, yes. Um, yeah, honestly, if you guys had seen the videos that got sent to Ophelia in the midst of this panic, you would maybe think I was insane, which I am. But my friend at one point sprinted out of the apartment and into the hallway of the apartment. It was just sobbing on the floor in the hallway. We had to drag her back inside. That's how emotionally charged the environment was. It was a lot to take in.
Yeah, I saw them and I wish I was there. But
Oh,
those were all notes, I guess. So we have one question. It's from at Alice in Ireland. And she asked, we're halfway through the season. Do you guys think we'll see more of Cole and Aunt Jo this season? And do you have any predictions for the county fair episode?
ooh, a two-parter.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that we see Cole and Joe. I think that we will. I hope. Uh, I think it would make a lot of sense if they like maybe came back for the fair or came back for the dance because Aunt Jo does stop in and visit the berries, like we've seen that before. So I think that would be a really good time for Cole to come back and visit. But as I'm saying that, maybe not because I doubt he's seen his parents since then.
Ew.
And yeah, I don't know how that would go, but I hope we get to see them more this season. I do miss them dearly. As for predictions for the county fair, I stick with what I said last time. I think obviously the psychic is going to tell Anne a little bit about romance, like give her a romantic prediction. And I still am sticking with my theory that the whole like episode is going to be this funny sort of comedic thing where Anne had all of these like signs given to her and she keeps having these scenarios where they're like lining up with Gilbert and she starts panicking, which honestly after what we had this last episode I could see that happening, where she just starts seeing everything sort of line up with Gilbert and she's like no 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 no, but not really though because she's in love with him. I think it would definitely be, ooh, I think it would be funny and also a really nice scene if like we had Diana and Jerry sneaking around the fair together. Like Diana's hanging out with Anne and then she's like, "Oh, I have to go." And then she sprints off and finds Jerry and then she sprints back off to hang out with Anne. Uh and I guess along with that, like I could definitely see just moments between all the couples. So maybe some more like Moody and Ruby moments. I don't know. I think it's going to be a nice light episode. But as I say that, it's probably someone's going to die. Like, just watch. But what about you?
So I agree with you on the county fair stuff. Like it's going to be lighthearted and romantical. And regarding Cole, he might be her and date to the dance.
Oh,
I wouldn't be surprised actually, if that.
yeah, I could see that.
So we'll definitely see Cole again. He's part of her life, just as much as Aunt Jo. So, don't worry about that, I think.
Yes, I think they're going to be back, obviously, especially Aunt Jo. But I think they're kind of a package deal now. You know, if we have an episode with one of them, the other one's going to be there too. So I really, in conclusion, I really hope so. But
Can we have
that,
a series with just Cole and Aunt Jo? Or did you already say that? I don't know.
say what?
Like a spin-off series with Cole
Oh
and Aunt
God,
Jo.
that would be amazing. I would I would fund that project if that was on the table. I would just love to see their like day-to-day lives, Cole doing art and getting into fashion and meeting a guy or whatever. I would love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so I guess that's it, guys. We have loved this recording.
Yeah.
uh, Spouting our love for Shirbert as we all do. I think this is the most Shirbert-centric uh, pod we've made so far. Um, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to talk to us more, you can go to our shared Tumblr, which is Call Me Cordelia Podcast, or you can go to our separate Tumblrs. Mine is Lydia's dash styles. And what's yours?
Mine is Sherbert's with two S's. That's the same thing also on Twitter. So if you have a Twitter, you can go follow me on there as well. I will probably be on Tumblr more though. But yeah, just send us any theories or questions. We're sorry if this is a little bit incoherent. We were feeling a lot of different things. But thanks for listening, guys. This one was really fun to film or record, whatever the term is.
Whatever. Bye guys, and I hope you'll tune in next week yet again. Bye.
Bye.